Welcome guys to another tutorials on statistics. My name is Samuel Endo and I'm doing the tutorials from my math book. In these tutorials I'm going to take a look at variances and standard deviation. So I'm going to write that one down. Variances and standard deviation. Now before we do anything, let's define deviation. Deviation, we know what deviation is. When you are going in a direct path and suddenly you move out of that path, that means you deviated from that path. So that's what deviation is. With regards to statistics, deviation means that you have a mean, and as long as you are on that mean, you're okay. But once you get out of that mean, you are deviated from the mean. So most of these those data entries you have, they deviate from the mean. So that's how come we calculate for their deviation. So let's just say, let's allocate D for deviation, and let's say the deviation is any of these values that we have, which is any of the data entry that you have that deviated from the mean. And I'm going to put this mean here, and this mean is a population mean. So that's what deviation is. I'm going to go ahead and write population standard deviation. Okay, so the population standard deviation will be given as this. We use S for that, and that's equal to a square root, and that square root will take different parameters. So I'm going to put it here, and it's going to take the sum of the deviation that we have, and that deviation will be squared. So you have to square that deviation. So let's square that deviation here, and then everything here will be divided by, trying to get it together. Alright, so that's the formula for standard deviation for the population. Let's define we have what they call variance. So the variance is also given as S, but this time the S is squared. So it's squared like this, and it's equal to, so once it's squared, which means S here is squared, it takes out the square root, so it will have the same values as this one. So let's copy this. So once it's squared, the square root goes away, so you still have the same value of that. So that's the difference between the population and sample standard deviation. The standard deviation population is this variance is the square of the standard deviation. So here there's a square root, and in the variance there's no square root. So that's the difference between variances and population when it comes to variances and standard deviation when it comes to population. Let's go ahead and define the sample one. Sample deviation. Well, let's do this. Let's put the population deviation, and then let's start a new one here called sample deviation. And with the sample deviation here, we're going to use D, alright, but here we're going to have any of the values. So let's say X minus a bigger X, where the bigger X is the mean. Okay, so where the X is the mean, and the little x is any data that you could find. So you have the sample standard deviation, and that sample standard deviation will be the same thing as the standard deviation of the population, except that here the number, so let's take the standard deviation of the first one. It's similar, so you have S, alright, and that's equal to this. But the only difference is here is the mean, and here you have n minus 1. So that will be the sample standard deviation. And then for the sample variance, because sample variance, because you're just gonna square the s, so because you're gonna square the x, is to take away the square root. So let's say let's do this. So it's gonna be everything else but the square root. So we take that also, we copy it, and we put it here. So basically that is the same thing. So that's deviation for the sample deviation, not the standard deviation, and variances for the population. And I hope this tutorial went well. Now what it is these are just for the raw data. We're going to talk about the group data very soon, and that one will entail frequencies as well. So this is just for raw data when they give you without a table, but we're going to talk about the one with the table when they give you the table. So I hope this tutorial went well, and next tutorial we're going to talk about Chebyshev's theorem and other components of statistics.